Matt Barrows joining us, courtesy of the River Islands Guest Line. Matt, good morning. Joe Spadoni alongside Sam Lubman, who's filling in for Joe Shasky today. And yeah, it's hard not to go to the head coaches when these two teams play each other, right? And, you know, I got a little grumpy. I'm not going to lie, Matt, the last 24 hours, a lot of callers still calling in saying they'd rather have Jim Harbaugh as their head coach than Kyle Shanahan. And does that surprise you at all that a good portion of the fan base, maybe it's not a good portion, maybe it's just a loud minority, would still rather have Harbaugh than Shanahan? And good morning, Matt.
Good morning, guys. No, it doesn't surprise. I mean, time and distance make the heart grow fonder. I remember in 2014, which was Jim Harbaugh's last year, he didn't have a lot of support from the fans. So I wonder if some of those same fans that are wishing that they had Jim Harbaugh were the ones who were wishing he was out of here in 2014 when they were just sort of a mediocre team that season. I mean, it was interesting to us as reporters because when Jim Harbaugh was here, we had a really hard time getting any information out of him. And he talked about, trusted agents and other teams having spies and things like that, like it was some, Cold War scenario going on. And yet yesterday we were able to kind of watch the whole practice. We were able to film the whole practice. We were able to do things that we weren't able to do when he was the head coach and we're not able to do with the 49ers these days. So it seems like he's turned over a new leaf as far as information. There's even a metro rail that goes literally over the Chargers practice fields while they're out there, which could be filled with all sorts of spies and secret agents and, Raiders officials and Denver Broncos scouts and things like that. And apparently it's okay now.
So you said Metro Rail. I thought you were going to say the Metro Rail somehow gives off waves that can cause injuries too.
Oh my God.
Some nonsense like that. Sorry, Matt, I'm sorry to bring that up. I'm just so glad that I feel like we're further and further putting the substation nonsense in the past. I saw your picture you tweeted out yesterday of their own substation behind the practice field. Funny how that never gets brought up. That's not the question I'm asking, though. I do want to hear about how practice looked yesterday. Obviously, I saw Kaelon Black was shining. Heard some great stuff about Oso Digizua. Take us through the practice yesterday, Matt. Who really shined yesterday? Who had a great day? Who had a day that maybe they don't want to talk about as much?
Well, I can only talk about the offense, the 49ers offense, because I was on that field and my colleague Vic Tafer was on the other one. But yeah, Kaelon Black jumped out. I mean, fresh legs. You can attribute some of that to him. This was his first practice back from injury, but he looked like he did before he got injured, and kind of picked up where he left off. I think he's going to play on Thursday. I think he's going to start the game on Thursday. So everything that you've been reading and all the highlights you've been watching, the fans can finally see him, number 26, out there on Thursday. Deebo Samuel, I could tell that when he got the ball, at least the Chargers were kind of eager to hit him. He just adds electricity whenever he's out there. So he helped the sort of the pace of the practice. But that was what was lacking to me is that, they came out against the Titans, both the offense and the defense, and they really took it to Tennessee in that joint practice a week ago. They didn't have that same burst, that same energy. And I think it's because, we're in the dog days of August. They had, this is something that Brock Purdy brought up. They had some pretty intense practices leading up to this joint practice. And so you could kind of see that, especially with the receivers. I thought that, 3 or 4 of them were just not able to go full stride. And you saw that in some of the routes, and you saw that in Purdy's numbers. He was 15 of 30. Mac Jones has similar numbers. Now, having said all that, 15 of 30, those are just the passing plays that Brock Purdy had. There were maybe, 15 to 20 running plays. So he played, 45 to 50 snaps. Good, against a first-team defense. And then Mac Jones played slightly less than that, and Adrian Martinez with the threes played slightly less than that. My point is that they get in a lot of work. They get in more work and sort of safer work because there's no tackling to the ground, things like that, than they do in a preseason game. So even if it's sort of, not exactly the energy that you would like to have in El Segundo, the team is still putting in better work than at any point in the summer. So that's why they like these joint practices, and that's why they had 2 of them this training camp.
Well, no, it's a good point, and I think Shanahan brought it up yesterday at the presser, Matt, about not having any fights in this one, and maybe that is an element about why this one may seem as, a little more lackadaisical compared to last week when there was a couple fights to start things off. So is it possible maybe just that edge factor and that hate factor, if you will, sports hate, just wasn't there between these 2 teams?
Yeah, that's how I read it. And you can say that, okay, that was maybe a good part of it, is that the practice wasn't interrupted over and over again with fights. But I do think that the 49ers were just lacking energy. And I'm not, it's not a critique. I think that's just probably the natural thing, especially when you're the traveling team. And like I said, those Saturday and Sunday practices were fairly intense. And I think that just kind of knocked a little bit out of them. Now, the question now is, can they kind of summon that for this game on Thursday, or is that going to be sort of a lackadaisical game as well?
You were on the offensive side of things. Mike Evans, how did he look? And I saw that he had to leave a little bit early. He had the ice around the foot/ankle. Then he moved it to the quad. How are things going with Mike Evans?
When he was out there, he looked good. There were at least 2 good deep catches. One where he just left the cornerback all by himself at the line of scrimmage. That's Mike Evans' forte. He is really good at these releases, really good with his hands. And so, Brock Purdy saw that right away and hit him for a deep pass down the sideline. Now, he did leave, I'd say, midway through the 11-on-11 stuff, and he stayed out there and he was kind of walking around. So, obviously, it's not a major concern, but this is a guy that missed a number of practices, a week and a half ago with a quad strain. He's in his early 30s. He usually misses a couple of games a year. So, it's something to be, I'd say, mildly concerned about, or something that you can see cropping up during the season at times. Now, would he be able to go in a Sunday game if he was in the same state he's in right now? I think the answer is probably yes. So he's sort of in that Christian McCaffrey category where, this is a multi-year veteran in his 30s. We're not going to push it. So if he's feeling tight, if he's not feeling himself, we're going to pull him out. Whereas if it's a Kaelon Black or a Dejon Stribling, those guys are going to keep practicing because the practice is more valuable at this point to them. So I think that's the difference between some of these guys who are probably dealing with the quote-unquote tightness and things like that, who are practicing, and the ones who have been pulled out.
You brought up Christian McCaffrey there, Matt, and we had some conflicting back and forth reports yesterday. Pro Football Talk is saying that there's speculation around the league that McCaffrey is doing a hold-in. Even Rappaport came out and said that no, it is just tightness. Kyle Shanahan said no, it is just tightness. So I feel like I know where this is going, but Matt, if you could be the final voice here that kind of ties this all together, what is going on with Christian McCaffrey? Is it tightness? Is it hold-in? Just what can you say about what's going on with him right now?
No, it's just tightness. I'll echo the others on that. I made a lot of calls, not just to the team. I know these days people are very worried that we're being mind controlled by Kyle Shanahan and the 49ers. So I made calls to the 49ers and outside the 49ers, and the message was all the same. No, that speculation is incorrect. And Shanahan's point was like I was just saying, if this were a regular week of the season, McCaffrey would have been out there practicing. But he's Christian McCaffrey. He looked good the first week and a half he was out there. He looked good in the spring. They don't need to push it. There's no sense in pushing it. And, if he's out there, then Kaelon Black isn't getting as many carries. So there are other reasons to allow younger players to show what they can do.
Another injury concern, obviously, for the 49ers is Nick Bosa coming off his third torn ACL injury. Sounds like, according to Shanahan, he's making a lot of progress. Should we expect to see Nick sooner rather than later at practice?
Yeah, I think three guys sort of in the same boat. They are Christian McCaffrey, Nick Bosa, and George Kittle. And we could all see them in one of the upcoming practices. So they've got the game on Thursday, and there's a day off after that, and then there's a practice on Saturday and Sunday. So I expect to see McCaffrey at one of those. I wouldn't be surprised to see Bosa at one of those. And then, I don't know if that's too early for Kittle, whether Kittle comes in on the following Tuesday practice or not. But I think that's what we're looking at. And really, that's why this year is so unique for the 49ers. Whereas most teams are kicking off on September 13, the 49ers are kicking off on September 10, and they're leaving for Australia a week before that. So really 2 weeks before, the start of the season for most teams, the 49ers are having to make decisions of, okay, who's getting on this plane? Who's going to be able to play in week one? So, usually this upcoming week is always an important week in the NFL. We're getting to the end of August. It's getting closer to cut down day. I think it's exacerbated. It's heightened for the 49ers just because they are on a stricter timeline than, 30 other tems in the NFL.
One more injured Niner that we badly haven't heard a lot is Kyle Juszczyk had the broken finger. How's he doing? Is he on track to play week one? Because I think he's kind of in that same boat as a lot of the guys you've mentioned already, the veteran players, where they kind of know how to get ready. The reps are more for the younger guys, but we also know how important Juice can be out of the backfield as the fullback here. So, yeah, just what's his status looking like?
I saw him walking down the sideline close to me, and he had, I think it's like a pinky bone or, a bone on the outside of his hand that's broken. And he's got a cast on that, and he's sporting a mustache, and his name is Kyle. And I just thought that he was really trying to curry favor with the head coach with this injury and the mustache, because he looked exactly like Kyle Shanahan. And Kyle Shanahan is now out of his brace. Doesn't have anything on it. I would think that maybe by the time September 10 rolls around, even if that bone isn't fully healed, he would be able to play with it if it's wrapped up. I don't know that for sure. But I would think that he would be a guy who gets on the plane at least. And, the 49ers sort of hedged their bets that he'd be able to play. But you're right. He's been with the 49ers since 2017, been in the league longer than that. He falls into that category of he doesn't really need to practice very much until the lead up to that game.
The left guard spot is obviously up for debate right now. You got left tackle Trent Williams. You got McKivitz. Pooney's dealing with concussion right now, but you expect him to be a starter. Brendel, obviously. How are things looking at left guard right now, and who would you say is the leader in the clubhouse to get the starting nod week one in Australia, Matt?
I think we're going to see a lot of Carver Willis on Thursday. He's been getting the lion's share of the snaps in this kind of segment of practices. So that they made it a true competition. They're giving Connor Colby, Robert Jones, and the rookie, Carver Willis, an equal number of opportunities to win the job. I still think that Willis is a long shot to win it. I mean, he didn't play any guard in college, so he's learning a new position. We saw Pooney do that a couple of years ago, but win a starting role as a rookie and play really well as a rookie. But he played guard some at Kansas. This guy didn't, so it's a steeper learning curve. I still think that Connor Colby is the leader in the clubhouse there. I think that the 49ers like the fact that he, played, almost 500 snaps last season, and then kind of took advantage of the offseason, came in bigger, stronger, a little bit more confident than he was at this point last year. So I think it's a toss-up between him and Robert Jones, and I think that he probably has the lead there. Now, with Pooney being out, he's dealing with a concussion, which they've had a rash of concussions along both the D-line and the offensive line. Robert Jones could start at right guard there, and it could be Carver Willis at left guard with Connor Colby sort of playing with the second stringers probably on both sides as well. So, like I said, they're giving all three of these guys lots of reps with the ones. And we'll have to see at the end of the preseason who comes out on top.
Talking with Matt Barrows here, a 49ers insider for The Athletic. And, Matt, we've been last segment we were kind of go over some quotes from Mike Silver's book from what the Why Is Everything, kind of talking about the Mike McDaniel when he left the 49ers and just what that relationship was like. And I don't remember a whole lot of negativity swirling around those two at the end, and maybe that's on me, but look at some of the quotes from this book. It did not seem like it was a very amicable split between Shanahan and McDaniel here. Just what do you remember about the end of that 2022 season and, McDaniel making that leap from the 49ers to the Dolphins? Just what was that relationship like from what you can recall between Mike McDaniel and Kyle Shanahan there at the end?
Yeah, I mean, I think that McDaniel had been his longest serving lieutenant. And so it was difficult for Shanahan to say goodbye to him. And I don't think that Shanahan ever thought that he would get that opportunity to be a head coach. Remember, McDaniel had been in Houston under Gary Kubiak and had run afoul of Kubiak. There were some drinking issues and basically got dismissed. And so he was banished for a little while. He was a coach out here in Sacramento for the Mountain Lions, the UFL team at the time. So, I think that there was a thought, not just among Shanahan, but, among NFL assistants that this guy probably has, hurt himself as far as ever being able to rise above offensive coordinator position. So I don't think that Shanahan was ever expecting it, and I think that was part of the issue. But I do think that Shanahan really valued him when he was here. Part of that banishment meant that when he came back into the NFL, this is now in Washington, he had been Shanahan's right-hand man in Houston, and Kyle Shanahan is now the offensive coordinator. And so McDaniel thinks that he's going to have a plum job, like quarterbacks coach, wide receivers coach. This is what you want when you're an ambitious offensive assistant, because that's the straight line to OC, and OC is the straight line to head coach. Well, he got placed with the offensive line. He got placed with Chris Foerster. But the flip side of that is that he saw a side of the offense that a lot of young assistants don't. And so that's why he's become sort of a run guru. And that's why I think that this Harbaugh-Mike McDaniel relationship is going to be an interesting one, because these are guys that like to run the football, and they have the capacity to as well. So I think that's something fun to watch from afar if you're a 49ers fan.
Well, no, and I think it's a great point, man. It leads me to this final question for you. We appreciate your time this morning. You've been so gracious. Is you think the running game has missed Mike McDaniel the last handful of years in San Francisco? Obviously, the year after. They go to the Super Bowl. Christian McCaffrey's incredible. The last couple seasons, it hasn't been good. Is that more injury related, or do they miss Mike McDaniel in the running game here, you think?
I mean, when Mike McDaniel was here, they just, showered him with praise, especially for his creativity. I mean, the run game would vary from week to week, and longtime guys, we just talked about Kyle Juszczyk, he was leading the chorus of praise. Trent Williams was part of that chorus as well. So, yeah, I think that he's definitely a part of that. The injuries last year were huge, and I do think that McCaffrey got worn down as the year went on. There are a lot of reasons why sort of the explosive element of running game diminished, but Mike McDaniel for sure is part of that. He's a creative mind, and that's why the Chargers ought to be. If you're playing fantasy football this year, pick up Amari Hampton on your team, the running back for Los Angeles, because he's got a good head coach calling the shots there.